Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our 30-day SQL. Um, Hello, everyone, welcome back to our 30-day SQL series. So this is day 5, and today's topic in is data types in SQL. Okay, and we'll also dive into the most important concept in database, the different types of keys. So in SQL, data types defines the type of value a column can hold it. Okay. So it helps the database to understand what kind of data is stored in the each field. Okay. All right. So that is a data type. Let us look at some common SQL data types here. So we have a bit, okay, tiny int, small int, integer, big int, decimal, numeric, float, real. So these are all the numeric data types we have it here. So then data times for to give a date and time we can use it date date time, timestamp, and the year. Then we have it for the character or the string. So numeric means just simply understand that the integer, the numbers we are gonna give it here. Okay. And date and time, so it should be in a date and time format. Okay. We have to bring it to the date and time format. All right. Then the character on the string. So like whatever the word you write it in a double quote, so that is your string, or you can give it your alphabet, A, B, C, anything, whatever you give it. Okay. So those are the characters. Then Unicode character and the string character, we have it nchar, nvarchar, nvarchar max, and text. Okay. Then we have it a binary, var binary max, and the image. Then we have miscellaneous, the other types such Clob, Blob, XML, and JSON. Okay, so these are the simple data types we are gonna understand in the SQL here. Okay, so let's move on to the most important part of database design, that is a SQL key. So here first let me explain you the table. So here as everyone has seen the tables, right? So we have a in the tables it is a collection of data where it is stored in the form of rows in the column, right? So but here we call it as for the columns, we call it as attributes, columns, or the fields. Anything you can call it. Okay. So and for the rows, we call it as rows, records, or the tuples. And here we have a null value for that. All right. Let's move ahead with our keys. So what are keys? So the keys help uniquely identify the records and maintain the relationship between the tables. So here that is a very simple thing. So a key in database is an attribute or a set of attributes that helps to uniquely identify a tuple. So we can call it tuple or the row in a relationship in the relation or a table we can call it as. Okay. So why do we need keys? So to uniquely identify a row, and keys are also used to establish relationship between the different tables and columns of a relational database. Individually, individual values in a key are called key values. So when we require a key, so to uniquely identify a row, so if this row is a unique or it can establish the relationship between the tables and the columns with the relational database, all this to check all the things we are gonna need a keys here. So let us understand the keys now. So here we have a different types of keys, that is a super key, candidate key, primary key, okay, alternate key, composite key, surrogate key, and the foreign key. So these are the different types of keys we have it here. So let us understand one after the other. So what are keys in SQL? So keys are constant. In SQL, it is used to uniquely identify records in a table and to maintain a relationship between the tables. So this we have already seen that. So the first one is your super key. So super key, what is a super key? So like the Spider-Man has superpowers, right? So in the same way, the super key is any combination of columns that uniquely identifies a row in a table. So we don't have a superpowers, but the Spider-Man has a superpower, right? It is a combination of columns. So like we have to combine combination of columns that uniquely identifies a row in a tuples that I'll explain you here. So it can have extra attributes that are not necessary for uniqueness. So for example, so see here the table student ID, email and the name. Okay, so here it is ID is 101, 102. The email is you can give it here. Then the name is Alice and the Bob. So student ID, email, student ID and name, all the above are super key because they can uniquely identify a row. Only the Spider-Man has a superpower, so he is a super key here. Okay, this columns. Okay, it identify as a row. So like all this has a student ID, only one ID we're gonna have it. So one email. Okay, all right. So all the above are super key because they can uniquely identify a row here. Now let's move on to our next key, that is a candidate key. A candidate key is a minimal super key. So that is, it is the smallest combination of fields that can uniquely identify a row here. So let me tell you for the above table. So like from the previous table, so these are the candidate key because they are minimal and the unique. The student ID can have it. Okay, so you cannot repeat a student ID. Even the email cannot be repeated. So both are the candidate key here. Okay, the name there can be a we can have a duplicate names as well then, right? This uniquely identifies a row. Now let's move on to our next key, that is your primary key. So a primary key is a one candidate key selected to uniquely identify rows in a table. So this primary key cannot have a null or the duplicate value. So like for example, if you want to write it in the SQL query, so here we can write on a create table student ID int primary key. Okay, the student ID will be the primary key here because the email sometimes this might be a duplicate. Okay, and the name like my name is Asma, right? So I can have by name. There are so many people's by name Asma. So the student ID is unique. Okay, so you cannot have a different same IDs. Okay, same student IDs is we cannot have it. Okay, so that's the reason the student ID is chosen as the primary key, and you cannot have a null or a duplicate values. Okay, then here we have a alternate key. So a candidate key that is not chosen as the primary key is called an alternate key. So like see for example, if the student ID is the primary key, then the email becomes an alternate key. So here in the primary key, we have taken it as a student ID as the primary key. Here the email ID becomes an alternate key here. Okay, so here what happens here is, so this alternate key is not chosen as the primary key. Okay, so this email has not chosen as a primary key, so that's the reason it becomes an alternate key here. Then we have a composite key. A composite key is a primary key that made up of two or more columns. Okay, so like for example, student table course registration. So like student ID and the course ID. So there are the primary keys. Here the combination of the ID, student ID and the course ID are uniquely identifies a row. So that's the reason it is a composite key here. Okay. So now let us understand the surrogate key. So a surrogate key is a system generated unique key. So usually an auto incremented number that acts as a primary key. So create table employee ID int auto increment. It's a primary key here. Name is a varchar. Okay. Then department is also a varchar. So here like earlier in my slide one I had explained you about the data types, right? So the numbers whatever we have it, that is a primary key. We can give it as like the int. Okay, so the employee ID that comes in the form of numbers. So I'm giving your data types as an int, then the name here, the varchar. Okay, department is also varchar. So here the email ID is a surrogate key generated by the system auto increment. Okay, so generated um, system generated unique key, usually an auto increment number that act as the primary key here. Now let us understand our last key, that is a foreign key. So here we have a foreign key is a field in one table that refers to the primary key in another table. It creates a relationship between the tables. So, like for example, I have created a two labels by giving a queries like create table departments, department ID in primary key. Then we have a department name, that is a varchar. So this is the one table, and the second table is the table employee. So here we have a employee ID in primary key. So this employee ID and the department ID, there is a relationship between these tables. Okay. We have a name, varchar, department ID in foreign key. So here say this department ID integer, it's a foreign key department ID references to department ID here. So this is all about the keys we have learned in today's class. There are seven different types of keys, so we have learned it, right? So, and that wraps up day 5 of our SQL series. So, today we covered data types in all the different types of keys in SQL with examples. So, if you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your doubts or feedback below. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss day 6, where we will talk about cardinality in SQL relationships. So, thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Bye bye. Take care.